reached the midway point of the season. The Dallas Cowboys sitting at 5-3. There's been some good wins, some tough losses, and then there's been lessons. One coming from the Philadelphia Eagles in Week 9, 28-23, the final in Lincoln Financial Field. But there's still a lot of football left. But first, we have to rewind Week 9. I'm Nicole Hutchison, your host for Cowboys Rewind. Eagles Cowboys was the most watched game this NFL season with 27.1 million viewers. The Cowboys just falling short on the big stage. When are the Cowboys going to win one of these good games? When will the doubt stop creeping in? All the questions a topic of conversation this week. Here's the boys on Hanging with the Boys sharing their thoughts on the podcast this week.
So this is just the cynical side of me, because a lot of people are saying they feel confident about coming out on the side of this game. And this, I cannot remember. A guy tweeted it to me yesterday, and I'm sorry, I do not remember who you were. I'm sorry, but I'm going to give you credit. You said this to me. And everyone's saying, well, I got confidence because this team came out of this game and they took the Eagles to the limit and they were short in doing it. And I thought to myself, well, what happens when the Eagles actually play good? Mm-hmm. Then what? Because you can say the Cowboys left stuff on the field. Yeah. Jalen Hurts didn't play his best. He had 202 yards passing. They didn't have a strong running game. A.J. Brown wasn't as effective as he's been all year, over the last 6 or 7 games. So my question back is that I get the confidence, and I'm sorry if I'm being cynical, but everyone's saying, I can't wait till the next game in December. Well, if you lost to them when you've played literally your quarterback and your number one wide receiver played lights out, and there was still something that you left on the field, I'm sure if we were watching from the Philadelphia side, they're going back and watch the game and go, whew, we're glad that we got this one out, but boy, are we a much better football team than this. So what then happens then? Is that not a part of the equation? Yeah. Like we're not talking about that side. They beat us and we played, like Jerry said on the flagship station this morning. He said with Dak playing the way that he's played, we could be in a lot of football games. He was amazing. Mm-hmm. 3 touchdowns, 375 yards. He was sacked 5 times. But what happens if Jalen Hurts has a 300-yard game, 250-yard game? What happens if they actually rush for 100 yards? Swift rushes better. They don't fumble the ball 3 times. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's like
then you lose by 10 instead
like
of
5.
Like
how, like, you know what I'm saying? Like there is like we all say we got better. We can say, well, what if they bounce back?
See, you
I'm speaking too much sense.
No, it started for me. Remember yesterday? And I said, these guys over here, fellas, understand this right here. When I hear people say they're in their tough part of their schedule now, the only thing that I can say is, and I'm being cynical, is I've seen them beat winning teams. And the only way I know that I will be confident when the playoff come is for sometimes, somewhere, you got to beat a winning team, a good winning team. So how do you start knowing that you're ready for the playoffs? Everybody's trying to say, well, if they don't, as long as they hot when the playoffs come. Fellas, I would ask those same people, when have we been hot when the playoffs came? Yeah. You make your own, you make it. You got to make yourself hot. That's why I'm saying, if you want to impress me, run off about 6 or 7 games. And I don't care who you play. Run off about 6 or 7 games in a strong, clean fashion. You're going to have some stumblings in the game. You're going to have some adversity. But run off 6 or 7 games. Show me.
The Dallas Cowboys close, but just not close enough, not good enough to win it on Sunday. The Cowboys' last 5 losses have all been on the road, but another big-time performance from Dak and CeeDee Lamb. We'll be right back on here on Cowboys Rewind to break that down.
Cowboys Rewind is brought to you by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys, and by SWBC Mortgage. Join the more than 120,000 customers that we've helped to find their happier way home. Visit swbcmortgage.com to find a pro today. This segment is brought to you by Ashley, the official furniture store of the Dallas Cowboys.
This Dallas Cowboys offense is finally starting to click. 3 games in a row where you're seeing Dak Prescott spread the ball around, finding CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson, and a few other guys have gotten some love as well. Dak Prescott completed 29 passes for 374 yards and 3 touchdowns. No interceptions. Doesn't get any better than that. He's now 3rd in the NFL for completion percentage. He targeted 9 different guys, including CD, who had his 3rd 100-plus receiving yard game of the season, but still not seeing much action from Brandon Cooks. He's only been targeted 29 times this year. No drops. The Player Lounge crew had some thoughts on what's keeping this offense from being the best that it can be.
I'm saying you threw the man the football 2 games, okay, and all he did was show you that he is as productive as he's ever been. I mean, nothing opposite of that. You watch the film and you see the guy be open multiple times. You see him open for a wide open touchdown. There is no reason because usually you say, all right, this dude he can't do it. He can't do it. He lost a step. Can't get open. Can't get separation. That's not what you're seeing from the guy. So I think it's a fair question. But shoot me. You've
been playing fantasy football.
Well, look, man, I think the frustration is brewing anyway with Brandon Cooks because you're not using him. We had an expectation coming into the season, and it's not living up to that. And he had 49 snaps, and all 49 snaps, he wasn't looked at. He had 2 targets in those 49 snaps, and for most players, that would be breeding frustration. You'd be going to the front office, you'd be talking about, hey, what was the purpose? And I think that's what you're alluding to. Is like you bring him here, he's the forgotten man on the totem pole. Look, the offense going into this game, you knew that Philly's defense was going to be tough. They were going to take some things away, but what they couldn't take away was what CeeDee Lamb was doing. And I, for one, I'm happy that Dak and CeeDee have this relationship. I can see the relationship between Dak and Ferguson. They have some type of relationship. Him and Brandon Cooks don't have that relationship. It's just true. And the thing is, in order for us to get to where we know we want to go, he's going to have to find a way to use Brandon Cooks because he still has it in his game. I was joking a couple of weeks back, man, maybe he lost a step. He ain't lost no step.
No, he's still
it's still in there. In those routes that you can use him on, whether you want to call it a dummy route or whatever it is, we have got to be able to put defenses in position to at least think about that deep route. Right now, they're not even honoring it, really, because they're like, man, he ain't looking over there at it. And so not only are we suffering in that aspect, but as we climb through the week, it's going to be apparent that you have to get this running game back on track. Because the biggest part of not being able to use him the way we want to is the fact that we don't have any synergy in our running game and our big playability down the field.
Yeah, there's no balance when you talk about this offense. I mean, we talked about what the identity was at the beginning. We thought it was going to be the running game. We talked about it again. It kind of evolved into this passing attack like you just mentioned. But to me, the most concerning thing about this Cooks situation is, like you kind of mentioned there a little bit, Heck, he's not even looking in his direction. Yeah. He's got either CeeDee Lamb right here. I'm going to CeeDee Lamb. If that's not the case, I'm going to Ferg. And if that's not the case, I'm going to Tolbert. And with all due respect, I know Tolbert's getting better and better, but he's still not on a level of a Cooks. So to me, it's just you ain't even looking in the guy's direction. So he's just out there on some dummy routes, and he's too talented of a player, and he still has a lot of juice left in the tank for him to be going out there just running dummy routes.
This wide receiver room has a lot of talent, no doubt about it, but it just got a little bigger with a new addition. We're breaking down what this new move means for that room up next. Stick with us.
This segment was brought to you by Ashley, the official furniture store of the Dallas Cowboys.
The Dallas Cowboys sit back and wait approach for adding new additions to this roster is finally paying off. They've added some firepower to that receiver room. The Cowboys signed free agent Martavius Bryant, a guy that was reinstated in the league on Saturday by NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell after a 4-year suspension. He worked out with the Cowboys on Tuesday, signed by Wednesday to the practice squad. A few mixed emotions around the star. Here's what the guys on the break had to say.
I think it's an interesting look at a player just because of the size factor of the player, the ability. I mean, I think this guy might have some of that like Deebo Samuel type ability to him when you hand him the ball or you throw him the ball or you watch him run with the ball. And unfortunately for him, he got into a situation with the league that they suspended him, and he missed a whole entire year. But you look at this guy's body type, the plays that he has the ability to make. Yes, it was a few years ago, but he's the type of guy that's got something to his game.
Well, it was only right to bring in my guy, Kyle Yeomans, to the show to break down this move. I had to kick it with Kyle. It's our new segment from here on out. But Kyle, when you talk about this new move with Martavius Bryant, I think a lot of people were like, question mark? Why this move? What are your thoughts on this move?
Well, I think it's a low-risk, high-reward sort of mentality for the Cowboys, and it could become that high reward. It may just not work out, but you're signing him to the practice squad. You're not investing a significant number of funds or salary cap numbers into his direction. What you're really doing is you're finding a possible new target for Dak Prescott, a unique target from what you have on the roster already. I mean, Michael Gallup is the deep ball threat. 6'2" is his frame. I mean, you've got a Martavius Bryant that comes in, and he's got the 6'3", 6'4" frame that you can really throw the ball up to. He's a bigger-bodied receiver, somebody that could maybe fill a role for this Cowboys team when he gets elevated from the practice squad. In talking with some of the staff through the first week of practice, they've been very impressed with how he is in game shape. He has been working out and, of course, played this past year with the Vegas Vipers of the XFL. So it's not like he's just completely off the streets. He hasn't necessarily been one of those guys that has stuck in the NFL, but he's been playing football. Can he get into a rhythm, and can he find a bit of a window to fit into for this Cowboys roster? That's the number one thing. But even if that doesn't work out, you're signing him to the practice squad. It's not a huge investment at the wide receiver position.
Speaking of practice, we saw him practice yesterday. What did you see? What caught your eye outside of his size? He's easily standing over the other guys, but what else caught your eye by him?
Well, and I think he even talked about it a little bit with the media, is the fact that you have the willingness to play special teams, because if you are going to make it from a practice squad spot into the active NFL roster, you have to be willing to play special teams, and he showed that a little bit in practice this week. Now, the Cowboys only had the one true padded practice that was on Thursday, and in that practice, I heard that he was running routes, he was able to participate in the special team standpoint, and John Fossil has always been very adamant about adding the 6'3", 6'4" bodies at the tight end position or the wide receiver position to potentially fill roles as gunners on punt team, maybe even on kick return, things of the sort, as a blocker up front. So if he can continue to show the willingness to contribute on special teams and to be a role player for this team, I think you'll start to see Martavius Bryant elevated to the active roster whenever Sundays roll around.
Yeah, he hasn't played an NFL game since 2018, but you mentioned it. He did make some stops in the CFL and XFL. What would these next few weeks look like for him as far as getting adjusted, getting him acclimated to this new system? It
goes back to game shape. It goes back to making sure that he's ready from a conditioning standpoint to go through an entire NFL season. I mean, he won't go through an entire NFL season, thank goodness. There's only 9 games left to play, but with that being said, at the wide receiver position, you're going up against guys that have already had 8 games under their belt or 9 games under their belt. If that's the case, you don't want to be out of breath. You don't want to be left behind, especially whenever you only have a limited number of snaps to make an impact for this roster. So even if Bryant continues to trend in the right direction, he's playing well, he's got to stay conditioned and be able to contribute through the course of an entire game. So that's probably the number one concern for Mike McCarthy, Brian Schottenheimer, making sure he gets up to speed.
To be determined. Those were Mike McCarthy's exact words about whether or not we'll see Martavius Bryant this season. But we're still having some issues with that ball distribution right now with the guys we do have. What do you want to see from them against the New York Giants? Because this is a game to really do that.
I think you want to spread it out. You want to try and get those weapons involved and build some confidence in guys like Brandon Cooks, Tony Pollard, who are capable receivers, weapons overall. You got to get those guys involved, do it early in order to have some success.
Hopefully we get to see that against the Giants. Like I said, hopefully 6-3. We're going to manifest that win.
Make it happen.
Make it happen, man. We're going to be right back here on Cowboys Rewind. Stick with us. There's no doubt that the Cowboys' offensive line has the potential to be the best in the NFL. Right now, they're 9th in the league, but still a little bit more improvement, room to grow. Right now, I've got Nick Harris in the building with me. Nick, we've got to start with obviously Terence Steel, but for me, in my opinion, I believe he deserves some grace because when Tyler Biadasz, and Tyron Smith were all injured earlier on in the season, he really held it down for that unit. How much grace do you feel like he deserves right now?
Yeah, he's definitely been the model of consistency as far as staying on the field when you look at all five up front. He's the only one that hasn't missed a game so far this season, and that's a big deal whenever you take into account that he's coming off of a major knee injury that he suffered last season. But when you come out of the Eagles game and you look at where the pressures were generated coming off that right side, you definitely have to take a look at Steele. 12 pressures allowed against the Eagles on Sunday afternoon, and obviously that was a big catalyst towards that Eagles defensive front getting home on Dak Prescott quite a bit. It hurt that last comeback attempt on the final drive in the final minute, and throughout the season, Terence Steel leads the team with 28 pressures allowed. We talked to Terence Steel this week in the locker room, and he said, no one's going to be harder on myself than myself. He comes from a military background, and he's very much going to get back to the drawing board and figure out what's wrong. I'm confident in Terence Steel and being able to figure out what's going to go right.
You hit it on the nail. He's still nursing that injury his first year back, but Mike McCarthy said something earlier in the press conference this week. He said that it's crucial to play through it, especially in times like these. How crucial is it for him to just keep playing through it?
Yeah, Mike McCarthy mentioned that whenever you come off of those major joint injuries, it typically takes a full season to get used to what that leg feels like again. And we're starting to see that with Terence Steel in some areas. We even asked him yesterday in the locker room, we said, has that knee bothered you at all? And he said it has a little bit, but it's been good overall. It's just going to take that getting used to, that's a completely different knee that he has now that's restructured. So just getting back to used to what's under his legs, that's going to be really crucial.
This is a game to actually, hopefully he plays well, gain some more confidence. But a guy that's been playing with a lot of confidence is Tyler Smith, second-year guy, one of the highest graded guards in the NFL. What have you seen from him aside from the improvement as far as his technique? He was one of the most penalized guys in the league last year. But what have you seen from him outside of that as far as his improvement?
Yeah, just being able to hone in on that left guard position. Obviously, last year there was a lot of jumbling around and putting him at left tackle, putting him at left guard. But just allowing him to hone in on those left guard abilities, that's been so huge for him. You mentioned him being one of the highest graded guards. He's third in the NFL out of 80 qualified guards according to PFF. He's doing fantastic work. He's only allowed 4 pressures on the season. That's an all-pro type of pace, and he's definitely leading that offensive line when it comes to not only consistency on the field, but play consistency. I think if he can keep up this pace throughout the back half of the season, we're going to look up in January or February. We're going to see a Pro Bowl and probably an All-Pro nomination.
Now, let's move forward to this Giants-Cowboys clash on Sunday. When you talk about this offensive line, this is a game to really, in my eyes, get this run game going. You're going up against the 25th ranked run defense in the NFL. How crucial is it to just, for this game like this, get that run game going? Yeah, it's a really big deal whenever you go into a game like this. Heavy favorites. The Cowboys are 17-point favorites as of Friday. That would be the largest spread in the NFL all season. And they're going up against a really good run defender in Dexter Lawrence. So there's really good opportunities to not only play against a team that you know you can beat, but also a really good run defender that you can try some things out and see if you can get some better advantages with. The guys that I'm looking at up front are Tyler Biadasz and Zach Martin. Just to be able to find those running lanes in the interior of that right side of the offensive line, I think that's going to be crucial towards this running game success. And Tony Pollard, I think a 100-yard day is coming for him. Wow. I was going to ask you, are you thinking maybe Tony Pollard should get most of the reps, maybe mixed in a little Rico Dowdle? I would love to see both, but I think Pollard gets 100. Okay, all right. You guys heard him. We'll be right back to wrap things up right here on Cowboys Rewind. Well, now the page is being turned to Week 10. Another NFC divisional matchup with the New York Giants, this time in AT&T Stadium. The second meeting this season for these two teams. We remember the first meeting. The Cowboys destroyed the Giants in Week 1, 40-0. It was one of the most lopsided losses in the Giants franchise history. That was with an almost fully healthy roster, but now the Giants walk into AT&T Stadium without their starting quarterback, Daniel Jones. They lost him to a torn ACL in Week 9 against the Raiders. Insert rookie quarterback Tommy DeVito. He's only appeared in 2 games this season due to the absence of Daniel Jones and backup QB Tyrod Taylor being injured a few weeks back. They've also activated Matt Barkley to add some depth to that position. Not much film on Barkley as well. He hasn't played in the NFL game since appearing in 5 games for the Bills in 2020. Since then, he's spent time with 4 other teams. It's a task for this Cowboys defense to prepare for a guy that doesn't have much recent film, but nothing this 7th-ranked unit can't handle. As far as this Cowboys offense, they have a top 5 unit ranking 3rd best in the NFL in points per game. They're taking on a Giants defense that ranks towards the bottom of the league, allowing 24 points per game. They should be able to light the scoreboard up on Sunday. Cowboys 6-3, we're manifesting that. That's a wrap, though, for Cowboys Rewind. We'll see you at AT&T Stadium on Sunday.
Cowboys Rewind was brought to you by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys, and by SWBC Mortgage. Join the more than 120,000 customers that we've helped to find their happier way home. Visit swbcmortgage.com to find a pro today.